falling in love with you. Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin? Falling in love with you. As a river flows gently to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things were meant to be. Take my hand, take my whole life too. Falling in love with you. As a river flows gently to the sea, darling, so we go. Some things were meant to be. Take my hand, take my whole life too. Falling in love with you. Falling in love with you. Falling in love with you. Falling in love with you.
Now, some of the things that's going to happen when you look out and see what can I contribute to, what can I give, I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have a voice that's saying, it's just no use. It's out of control now. There will be a voice telling you that you'll be wasting your time and wasting your energy and wasting your effort. I say, don't listen to it. Listen to that still small voice that says, I can do something, and I ought to do it. We ought to do it. Disraeli said this: nothing can resist the will of a people that will stake even their existence on the extent of their purpose for good. I strongly believe that all of us have some work to do, that each one of us showed up to do something, that each one of us showed up to contribute something to life, and that if we don't do it, it will not be done. Be it that you want to help and contribute to youth or do something for the homeless, whatever you want to do, if you get up in the morning out of a sense of ought-ness and decide that I am an opening for the universe, that life can work through and use me as a channel and as an instrument for change.
How will you serve the world? What do they need that your talent can provide? That's all you have to figure out. I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. You are ready and able to do beautiful things in this world. And after you walk through those doors today, you will only ever have two choices: love or fear. Choose love, and don't ever let fear turn you against your playful heart.
Begin to see yourself as an opening for the universe, to move through, to work through, to make a difference in life. See yourself being used by life to improve the quality of life, to expand and to grow.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dangerous Minds. Please, can you welcome your host for this evening, Archie Pearman.
Good evening and welcome to Dangerous Minds 2022. My name is Archie and I welcome many of you back to this year's competition, which I know all have been looking forward to. However, I welcome lots of you back for the first time. We all know that Dangerous Minds is growing increasingly important, increasingly popular and increasingly competitive to get into. Therefore, I am honoured tonight to introduce you to our speakers who have some stunningly profound, remarkable, and, of course, dangerous ideas. They will all be competing this year for the title of this year's winner and, of course, the Henry Hunt Trophy. However, I think the most remarkable thing about this competition is that you, right there, all you, hello, you, yeah, all seven of you next year will be standing where I am now. Or, in a new generation, in 10 years to come, another 7 will be standing here for 8 fleeting moments. The moments where the lights, the listener, and the stage is yours. The moment when the speaker stops, pauses, and brings the whole room to a quiet hush. The moment when your friend is up there on that stage. Those fleeting 8 minutes. So, let's kick off tonight with our first speaker. Please, ladies and gentlemen, with the biggest welcome, Charlie Morgan.
How do you want to die? Peacefully in your sleep, doing what you love, surrounded by those you love. It is a question we will all come to think about over the course of our lives. No matter your background, we will all have different thoughts on how best we should go, meaning it will always be a divisive topic for society. That is why I'm going to give you my thoughts on a concerning new opinion that is rising rapidly throughout the world, and why this in particular poses the greatest social threat our country will see in the next 100 years. Now, many of you here today will believe that we as humans should have the right to control how we die. That, when we want to, we should be able to go with great peace and dignity, almost from the comfort of our own homes. I believe that such a thought is unrealistic and dangerous. It fails to take into account the long-term consequences and doesn't see past the short-term benefits, which, to be fair, I can understand. Euthanasia is a very new concept, and as with many of these things, we cannot truly understand the risks they pose to our society until it is too late. That is why I'm going to convince you, as best as possible, euthanasia is not something you, nor the rest of society, should want to exist. And to help you understand the potential catastrophe that would be caused, I'm going to get you to imagine a scenario now that will make you feel uncomfortable. I want you to imagine we've hit the fast forward button by 40 years. Euthanasia has now been legalized for 20 of those. It is by now a well understood part of society. You yourself have a well-paying job and a family with 2 children. Your eldest child is 18 years old and suffers from a permanent condition which affects his mobility completely from the shoulders down. From an age as early as 12, he has talked openly about his desire to end his own life. A child so young should be encouraged at all costs to try and preserve what life they can. Not to mention, children often have the ability to recover from what was previously thought to be a permanent condition. For your son, who you love with all the world, to be euthanized would mean a tragic throwing away of life, which still had so much more to offer. I want you to imagine a reality where that is not only possible, but widely accepted as being a part of life. As of the 8th of January 2022, Austria took its first steps towards this reality. This, I believe, is a tragedy. It seems to be the case these days that we are trashing the preciousness of life to the extent where it will eventually just be a commodity for some individuals to exploit for their own gain. And although not yet a reality in this country, surveys suggest that it is the people of the United Kingdom are overwhelmingly in favour of a similar act. Now, I want you to imagine a second scenario, this time from the perspective of the person being euthanized. You're an 80-year-old ex-Marine. You served in the war for 20 years. During your time of service, you saw some truly horrific things, and at the age of 70, you were diagnosed with PTSD. You watched as your family became increasingly fed up with your condition, and now, 10 years on from your initial diagnosis, you feel the need for you to go to end the burden on their lives. You take an early death from a condition you could have recovered from. The slippery slope argument presents my feelings towards euthanasia best. It makes the case that in many cases, a course of action should not be allowed, not because of the immediate effects, but because of the potential chain reaction that could be caused to society. Let us say, for example, that we should not legalize marijuana. This is because people would begin to accept that it is an acceptable drug, and this could open the floodgates to the acceptance of all drugs within society. If we are not careful, the same could become true of euthanasia. That, as we become more comfortable with the idea of it, we leave ourselves complacent to those who wish to abuse the system. But my final reason, ladies and gentlemen, that euthanasia should not be legalised in this country comes from a concerning new invention that could be legalised in Switzerland as early as next year. So-called euthanasia pods offer a new and peaceful way for one to end their own lives, or so the company suggests. They work by replacing the air inside of them with increasing levels of nitrogen and decreasing levels of oxygen, causing the person inside to lose consciousness and eventually die. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but to me, this sounds like a one-way trip towards a second Holocaust. Families send the elderly off to be killed so they are no longer a burden on their lives. But the part I find most concerning about this invention is that it will not be regulated by medical professionals. No. Instead, it will be for sale. Anyone, anywhere, could buy the blueprints to these and have them built for them. Could you imagine the scenes if these got into the wrong hands? We are talking a wave of mass killings, suicides on the up, and the overall depreciation in the value of human life. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk of the slippery slope argument, we talk of a chain reaction of events. Tonight, I present to you the first cause of that chain reaction: euthanasia. So, if after contemplating the deaths of your loved ones, the possibility for those to abuse the system, or indeed a wave of unnecessary and premature deaths, you can still get behind euthanasia, I applaud you. I applaud you for being able to cope with the blood on your hands when it is your grandparents, your parents, your loved ones, and indeed your children that take an early death because of the support you gave to euthanasia. But I also beg you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I beg you to reconsider your views on euthanasia now, before it's too late. Thank you for listening.
From Upper 6th Martlet, please welcome to the stage, Bella Barker.
Do you know when the slave trade ended? What if I told you it hadn't? What if I told you that tonight there are 100,000 victims of modern-day slavery across our nation, including here in Surrey, potentially even in Cranleigh, and of those, 71% are women or girls, and 1/3 are children. Tanya is one of these victims. Tanya is a girl who had everything stripped from her at the age of 13, the age she met Dave. Tanya thought she loved Dave. She would do anything for Dave, and he used this knowledge, combined with her innocence, to manipulate and coerce her into selling her body for sex. Night after night, and bar after bar, Tanya would be taken out with Dave while he advertised her to potential suitors. And when Dave found the right man who would pay the right fee, he would force 13-year-old Tanya to have sex with him. This continued for years. And there are hundreds of other harrowing, sickening testimonies out there. The slave trade is most certainly not a thing of the past. Just now, it revolves around sex, or more accurately, sexual abuse and coercion. In simple terms, human sex trafficking is when a person takes part in the sale of sex through threat, abduction, or other means of coercion. This is not to be confused with sex work, when a person willingly takes part in the sale of sex. It is consensual and doesn't affect their human rights. These two concepts, while linked, as many sex workers end up in situations where they are trafficked, are not the same. And that is crucial to understanding the rest of this speech. Perhaps by now, you have an idea of where I'm going with this. And while I could certainly present my views on the issues of human trafficking, today I'll be spending my time on the stage to discuss a practical solution: the legalization of sex work. First of all, a small but relevant point. As some of you may have noticed, earlier I defined the term sex work, not prostitution. Although sex workers are colloquially referred to as prostitutes, it is my belief that this term is perpetuating the same stereotype that making their job illegal does. It portrays the work of sex workers as so dirty or degrading that it becomes insulting to refer to someone in this way. Therefore, I will exclusively be using the term sex work for the duration of this speech. Currently, sex work is illegal in the UK, but I strongly believe that we should follow in the footsteps of many of our European friends and legalize it. Sex work is legal in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Greece, the Netherlands, and several other countries across Europe. In fact, across the European Union's 28 member states, the number of sex workers ranges from between 700,000 and as many as 1.2 million. And in Germany alone, the industry is estimated to be worth around $16.3 billion, according to Germany's Federal Statistics Office. This isn't mentioning the fact that it's legal in New Zealand and at least 4 states in Australia, including New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and Tasmania. Now, every country I've mentioned thus far has a good human rights record in the eyes of the Western world. They are all democracies, all a part of the UN, and most are a part of NATO, if not at least one other security-focused intergovernmental organization. But they also have one very important thing in common. These countries all have lower human trafficking rates than the UK. Let us assume a situation in which sex work is entirely illegal, i.e., sex workers and their clients are prosecuted if caught. As with other illegal markets, e.g., the market for classified drugs or endangered species, illegality does not eradicate the market, given that there is a strong demand from clients on the one hand and the willingness to supply sex work services on the other hand. One is punished for consensual sex work as one is punished for unconsensual sex work, sex trafficking. One would hope that these punishments differ in magnitude, but nonetheless, they are both considered criminal activities, leaving the women or girls involved with little to no rights by which they are able to defend themselves. Suzanne is an illegal sex worker. Born in Romania, she's been working in Soho, London for 5 years. Unfortunately, she, like many other sex workers, has been physically abused until she was on the brink of death, but has no rights by which she can defend herself with. Every time I come forward to report violence, I end up threatened to be arrested or prosecuted because I work in a brothel, she says. Next time I suffer violence, I sure as hell won't report it. It began like a normal arrangement, she explains. The person came up, discussed the price, agreed a time, and paid. But, she continues, at the time of the service, the person just put his hands around my neck. He kept on pressing with one hand on my throat. And he punched me in my face until I passed out. I was in agony. I was bleeding. In the attack, I lost 2 teeth. He was there to kill me. And I was lucky that I passed out, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have survived. No one deserves to be treated like this. It cannot be justified under any circumstance. Despite the fact that Suzanne is committing a crime which is legal in 15 countries, she still deserves to live. So now not only do we have ourselves a situation where sex workers who have consented to selling sex are being abused, but there is also a ripe sexual trafficking industry. This is the state the UK is in, and it is imperative it changes, with this change being the legalization of sex work. While I have, I hope, made you acutely aware of the severe issue of human trafficking, I have yet to convince you that legalizing sex work will play any role in reducing it. Fundamentally, it comes down to the simple laws of economics. Legalizing sex work means that the risk of prosecution diminishes, which will increase consumer demand on two accounts. Less people will be deterred, and it will be cheaper, as sex workers themselves will not have to be compensated for the risk of prosecution. If you apply the same logic, supply also increases. With demand and supply both increasing, the sex work market will increase in size in the legalized regime compared to the situation where sex work is illegal. Now, many believe that sex work markets expanding after legalization will actually increase trafficking, because trafficking and sex work do not provide the exact same function, so no substitution will occur. However, I find fault in this theory. To assume that a general increase in the market will affect supply and, most importantly, demand of both sex work and trafficking equally is not valid. Why would people choose the illegal route? Of course, one may argue, people who engage in human trafficking are totally immoral and have no regard for the law anyway, but it is still fair to assume that if the scale of sex work becomes larger once it's rendered legal, this will substitute at least some, if not all, of the trafficking industry. Not only will there now be a legal way to buy sex, but also victims of trafficking and sexual abuse are granted more rights, which ultimately they are in desperate need of. This issue is relevant. Slavery is alive. We need to hear the silent cries of these women, for they cannot shout their struggles from the rooftops. The way they pay their bills should not make them subject to trafficking and abuse. Hear these women, empower these women, protect these women. Thank you.
From Lower 6th Roads, please welcome to the stage, Nemo Karaoke.
Close your legs. Cover up. Your skirt is too short. Whom amongst us here have heard this message before? Whom amongst us leave our houses every morning concerned about the prejudgments that will be made of us according on what we've decided to wear? Whom amongst us can hand on heart say that we truly have the freedom to wear what we please? The reality is this, that even in a nation like the United Kingdom, one that is seen as to be liberal and democratic, women are still second-class citizens when it comes to the freedom of choosing what we wear. In most institutions, whether it be workplaces or schools, women are advised to wear skirts that are of appropriate length. Appropriate? What does this term actually mean? And Appropriate to whom? So if I wore a skirt that was seen as an inappropriate length, I'm seen as unorthodox, unprofessional, and potentially destructive to the workplace. But why is this the case? It all roots back to the over-sexualization of young women and girls by society. The ideology that in order for a woman to be respected or taken seriously, she has to hinder her femininity. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a renowned Nigerian writer, stated that the first time she taught a writing class in graduate school, she was worried. Not worried about the content that she was going to teach, as she was passionate about it and well prepared. She was worried about what she was going to wear. She knew that as a woman, she immediately had to prove herself worth. She knew that if she wore the lip gloss and the girly skirt she really wanted to, she wouldn't be taken seriously. So instead, she wore a suit she described to be grey, dull, boring, but accepted by society. Now back to the school skirts. Another reason girls are asked to cover up is because of their safety. This goes hand in hand with the over-sexualization of young girls, which raises the question, are male students so distracted by our skin that they can't focus on their learnings? Are our male employees at schools and workplaces so mesmerized by our flesh that their ability to carry out their day-to-day tasks is made impossible? If so, should schools be employing these men that could potentially put our girls under threat or put their safety at risk? I decided to carry out an experiment that questioned whether taller girls were more likely to get told off for their skirts in comparison to other girls. So I measured the leg to skirt ratio of a girl that was 5'11" and a girl that was 5'5". Later on that day, they were walking side by side, and the teacher stopped them. The teacher criticized the tall girl about her skirt and told her that it was way too short and inappropriate for school, while the 5'5" girl didn't get questioned. This very clearly highlights that girls above the average height are being singled out for something that they can't control. I've seen way too many tall girls shed tears over the way they were made to feel about their bodies. However, this does not only apply for tall girls alone. Many girls experience anxiety while walking the halls of this so-called safe space, worried about their body image, or worried that they'll be humiliated by teachers in front of their pupils simply because of the length of their skirts. Now, some people may ask, if skirts are so problematic, why wear one, or why allow students to wear them in the first place? But isn't it obvious? It's not like the girls who are wearing the skirts are the problem. It's the stigma surrounding them. We are still abiding by the rules that were written by white Victorian men hundreds of years ago. Who are they to decide whether I can wear a short skirt or a long one? Who are they to decide what is inappropriate for me to wear or what is decent? Women can't exist on earth without their appearances being scrutinized. We are no longer going to sit in silence at an institution that is promoting the marginalization of girls through their choice of clothing. We as women need you as men on our side to help us battle this inequality that has been engraved into our society. And in the words of writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, culture does not make people. People make culture. So if it is in fact that the full humanity of women is not our culture, then we must make it our culture. Thank you.
Okay, we've had our 3 performers. Can I just ask though, is everyone having a good time? Fantastic, because we have 2 more to come right after this short video break.
There are people who talk about the creative process with such humility. You know, there's a sense that something larger than yourself has worked its way through you. You know, to paraphrase Khalil Gibran's notion about children, the creative process, creativity comes through you, but not from you. Though it is with you, it belongs not to you, right? You know, this notion that we are the frontal lobes of the universe. And so when we craft beauty, when we vocalize, when we utter inspiration, what are we actually doing? Are we creating something that isn't there, or are we merely transcribing, right? The notion of inspiration means we're breathing in and exhaling what we've taken in. So we're merely transcribing the observation of what is. We're reporting. We are all cosmonauts, psychonauts, and the creative process is merely what we brought back as reporters of the numinous. When we go to Plato's realm of ideals, we are as navigators. We are as Dorothy going to Oz, seeing the world through a different lens, seeing reality through a different operating system, a different set of filters, and thus being able to read differently, to see something that others can't, and then bring that back, and then share that back. And I think that that's what's happening during creativity. I think that that's why we should be humble about it. Respect the gods. There's poetry in every moment.
Please welcome to the stage from Upper 5th Martlet, Lauren Beaumont.
Our democracy is deteriorating. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, from the silencing of scientists to the demonizing of people daring to question the status quo, informed consent and freedom of speech have been thrown out the window. Foundational, vital aspects to our democracy and the way we function as a society are not only no longer happening, but they are being actively blocked by the people in control. The same people claiming to be keeping us safe. Let me first introduce you to Dr. Robert Malone. For those of you who don't know, Robert Malone is the creator of the mRNA and DNA vaccines. In other words, he effectively created the technology behind the COVID vaccine himself. He is an insider in the American government and has led the fight against viruses since AIDS. He personally knows Dr. Anthony Fauci, the chief medical advisor to the President of the United States. And he also happens to be the only scientist with zero financial stake in the COVID vaccine. Now, over the course of the pandemic, he has continuously released all scientific data surrounding the risks and the benefits of taking the vaccine, prioritizing mainly children under the age of 18. In the last year, Dr. Robert Malone has been deplatformed off of Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all other social media platforms for having the courage to speak truth to power, question the scientific data, and provide valid alternative narratives. He has now been framed as a heretic. Our governments clearly have a censorship agenda when it comes to COVID-19. If Robert Malone has been given no merit to his voice, then who will the governments allow to have merit? Who will the governments allow to have a voice? History shows that when the governments decide who gets to talk and who doesn't, chaos follows quickly. These times are unprecedented. We cannot recall a time by which a conversation surrounding a vaccine or a medical product has been actively blocked. A time in which scientists have been silenced and targeted. A time in which people reluctant to take a medicine or a vaccine have been marginalized, demonized, and stripped of their human rights. Informed consent, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the pillars to our liberal democracy. The idea that before a person takes a vaccine or a medication, they have had access to all information surrounding its risks and benefits. With the COVID-19 pandemic, informed consent is simply being blocked. From the deplatforming of scientists like Robert Malone, Peter McCullough, and countless others, to the mandates being placed on the unvaccinated, specifically our NHS workers, whose service demonstrates the highest form of selflessness, are now being framed as selfish if they even question the mandating of the vaccine. Freedom of expression is a fundamental human right. It reinforces all other human rights and allows for our society to develop and progress. In this case, the ability to express our opinion and inform the public on the science involved in a health product is essential, vital to the foundation of our society, democracy. Now, I understand that we probably don't agree on the effectiveness of the vaccine, but I am not asking you to agree with me. Two things we must be very clear on, however, is that the COVID vaccine is an experiment. It is still classified as an experimental vaccine, the way any health product is really. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is illegal to mandate an experimental vaccine under the federal common rule and the federal law. And yet what we're seeing is that education, employment, and travel are being actively prevented towards the unvaccinated. In companies like Nike, unvaccinated employees are being fired. Our NHS frontline workers are being told no jab, no job, and are being sent home with no redundancy pays or pensions. In countries like Austria, unvaccinated people are being fined thousands. And in the UAE, if you're not vaccinated, you cannot even leave your country. Now, I understand that these examples are scattered, but I am using them to demonstrate how the lines between human rights and being vaccinated aren't just blurred. They no longer exist. Our governments are out of control, lawless, continuously showing a complete disregard for the basic bioethics that surround the mandating of an experimental vaccine. Now ask yourself why. Why are our governments breaking the law? Why are our governments actively preventing us as the public from knowing the whole scientific truth? And then stripping us of our human rights if we fail to comply? Our governments don't want us knowing the truth. They don't want us asking questions. They want us to shut up and do as we're told. Because the rich get richer, and the people in control protect and preserve their power, but only when we comply. If you care about our democracy, I am begging you to never stop questioning. It is currently extremely dangerous to speak the truth to sources of power, even to admit beliefs that don't align with the general consensus. However, we should be far more frightened of what will happen if we don't, rather than what will happen if we do. Our government should not be able to scare us into submission. The COVID vaccine is divisive. this need to judge others, to feel as if we breathe a purer moral oxygen, has blinded us and warped our moral compasses. But it doesn't stop there. Freedom to work, travel, educate, and speak have been annihilated. It is easy to feel helpless as individuals against such mountains of power. Our individual power put together, however, now that is stronger than anything. So please, let us put our beliefs aside and look at how much is at stake here. It is our duty to protect our democracy when our leaders prove themselves incapable of doing so. So please, let us protect our sacred democracy. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final contestant from Upper Fifth Loveday, Ozzy Llama.
What is culture? Culture is a barrier to the future, to equality, and to our own individual happiness. The idea of culture appears to work on a basis of inclusivity, but really adopts a policy of exclusivity. And it is far too commonplace nowadays to be forced out of a discussion because you have simply got the wrong idea. In 2018, Kanye West, a symbol for black culture in America, was perceived by many to no longer be considered black on Twitter. And this came as he allied his political views with Kanye West after a visit to the White House. Just to remind all of you, this is the same Kanye West who has spoken out against racism on songs such as New Slaves. The same era-defining Kanye West who has helped to promote the celebration of black culture to every single corner of the world. The same Kanye West who has the same right to the same freedom of speech as each and every one of you. So, you may be asking yourself, how has such a culture-defining figure been subjected to the means of cancel culture? Well, the answer lies in culture itself. Still don't believe me? Let's take a look at Douglas Murray, the associate editor of The Spectator, who is also openly gay, and in the past has expressed his seemingly right-wing views on politics and social norms. What was the result of this open expression of opinion? Also known as freedom of speech? Well, he was excluded by many from the LGBTQ+ community because his ideas were simply too right-wing. And this highlights the issue with modern-day culture. The fact of the matter is that people will take offense to anything that is not their idea. And with the formation of societal groups through mediums such as the internet, we've been repeatedly exposed to the same ideas over and over and over again. What does this do? It creates an echo chamber where we are too familiarized with our ideas. They become stagnant in our cultures. So then, what happens when someone, such as Mr. Murray, has a differing opinion that goes against the grain of the main idea? Well, they are shunted out and neglected by many because their views do not fall in line with everyone else's. Now, Some of you may be thinking, how does this affect me? Last time I checked, I haven't had any controversial views or ideas. And whilst I may agree with that, I would also like to mention the ill-given side effect of culture, which is fear. Fear of exploration and fear of discovery. We are in a position where a tweet made over 15 years ago can end your career before it has even begun. This is all too common, especially in individuals our age, who are too cautious to adopt new cultures in fear of offending the very people that hold our working lives in the palms of their hands. Have any of you ever heard of Harry Potter? That ultra-successful franchise, which has brought so much joy to kids and adults alike, is an escapism from our problematic world? Well, then I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have heard of the recent controversies surrounding J.K. Rowling, her views on trans rights. Now, I'm not here to decide whether these views are right or wrong. But what I will say is that the very reputation of such a well-respected author has been decimated in the light of this controversy. And whilst some have looked at this opinion and disagreed with it in a well-structured, conclusive manner, others, such as Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, have openly condemned her acts, causing many fans of the book to maraud its very own author, sending malicious comments and threats. Ladies and gentlemen, this is but another prime example of the effect that culture has on our society. How are we ever meant to progress as a species if any idea is shut down before it can reach the light of day? Now look, I'm sure that many of you are looking at this dangerous idea as very controversial. After all, I'm a white, privileged boy telling people that they can no longer have their own opinions. However, I'm afraid to say that if that's what you've truly taken from this, then you've got the wrong message. What is not okay is hate speech. That is abusive or threatening speech which expresses prejudice towards another group. But, provided it is constructive, people are allowed to have their own opinion, and people are allowed to have their own thoughts and ideas. But the boundaries that culture creates around these ideas by idolizing them is the only pure way is horribly wrong and is what makes them so unsustainable and destructive. We live in a society where the most effective rebuttal to an argument is, I'm offended. What the I'm offended argument does is it shifts the point of attack from, we both have differing opinions and I disagree with you, to, I'm offended and therefore my view is right and you are a bad person. I think it's safe to say that we can all see the issue in that, can't we? Finally, I want you all to imagine a world where we are not allowed to open our mouths in fear of speaking our minds. A world where mutual censorship stands tall above us all. A world where we are no longer free. Ladies and gentlemen, does this sound like a world that you would want to live in? Because I certainly wouldn't. And the only way we can stop a world like this from manifesting itself into reality is by preventing culture now. So, we need to rid our society of these exclusive cultures and adopt open minds. We need to stop sticking to these exclusive cultures which idolize singular ideas, and instead we need to expand our horizons and welcomingly open people's ideas. This will create a world with free-flowing knowledge and wisdom, because in the words of the great human rights leader Nelson Mandela, if people can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its counterpart. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that wraps up all of our contestants for this evening. So what's going to happen now is that the judges are making their decisions, and when we come back, the winner of the Dangerous Minds competition 2022 will be announced. Enjoy your break.
I see a red door and I want it painted black. No colors anymore, I want them to turn black. I see the girls walk by dressed in their summer clothes. I have to turn my head until my darkness goes. I see a line of cars and they are painted black, with flowers and my love both never to come back. I see people turn their heads and quickly look away. Like a newborn baby, it just happens every day. I look inside myself and see my heart is black. I see my red door, I must have it painted black. Maybe then I'll fade away and not have to face the facts. It's not easy facing up when your whole world is black. No more will my green seagull turn a deeper blue. I could not foresee this thing happening to you. If I look hard enough into the setting sun, my love will laugh with me before the morning comes. I see a red door and I want it painted black. No colors anymore, I want them to turn black. I see the girls walk by dressed in their summer clothes. I have to turn my head until my darkness goes. I wanna see a painted, painted black, black as night, black as coal. I wanna see the sun blotted out from the sky. I wanna see a painted, 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 painted black. Yeah. Well, you know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and throw my head back and come on now. Don't forget to say you will. Don't forget to say yeah, 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 yeah. Say you will. Say it right now, baby. Say you so good to me. You know you make me wanna lift my head up and throw my hands up and kick my heels up and come on now. Take it easy, take it easy, take it easy. A little bit softer now, 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 a little bit louder 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 now. Hey, 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 hey.
Okay, so the time has come where we have to announce our winner. So, with an extremely loud applause, please, can we welcome our finalists? And can we please give a big cheer for Mr. Reader?
Well, thank you everyone for coming. It's one of my highlights of the year, this competition, and it really, really was good. In fact, it was almost a unison. Mr. Rothwell, Mr. Verdon and I left and thought, this gets harder every year. And it really does. I think as you listen, what I really loved was that last year we commented that you don't need to shout, just use your voice to persuade. And I thought everybody today was really quietly persuasive, which was really, really good. We didn't feel we were barracked at all, and you really got that sense. This is always very difficult because whilst it is a dangerous idea and we're looking for dangerous ideas, it is a public speaking competition. So we're judging whether this was the best example of a public speech in addition to the idea. So challenging that balance was quite difficult. I'm just going to go through everybody very, very briefly and then come up with what we've decided together. We started with Charlie. I love that sort of slippery slope. I love the way you confronted us. You've done this before, Charlie. It's great. It's great to see you get more confident each time you do it, and you just have a lovely stage presence, a nice rhythm. At times, perhaps just slightly over-egged it on. I think the slippery slope argument is powerful, but it was slightly over-egged at times. But there was a real power to the way you spoke, and you opened beautifully. Bella, probably the most dangerous of the ideas, which was good. And of all of them, and this was going to be part of the balance of all of them, it was probably the one that was most clearly a dangerous idea. And for me, I sat there thinking, this shouldn't be dangerous at all, should it? It should just be something we consider. But because of our culture, if you like, Aussie, it really was. It is dangerous, and I was challenged. Again, very, very powerful. Just every now and again, try to remember it's not an essay or something you've written that you're then speaking. Every now and again, it stepped into I was just thinking, this would be a really powerful blog, and just needed to tweak the public speaking. Nemo, we really loved yours. And again, what was great about it was challenging the community, which was good. We liked that. We need to listen and sort of powerful ideas and examples. I think you could have challenged us even more. I really wondered if you'd made the ending your start, so just made us actually think, men, come on. Ella Job spoke on a similar issue in the first one, and I think that would have been even more powerful for us. It was really, really good, but if you confronted us from the beginning, we would have felt even more uncomfortable, and it would have been. But it was very, very good indeed. Lauren, as usual, just this sort of quiet persuasion. Again, I quite like this idea that the real danger is speaking the truth, and that I think you could have brought that out a little bit more, but it was, again, you're masterful. Perhaps not quite as confident as last year. I don't think you knew it quite as well as last year, and again, at times slipped into a bit bloggy, but it was again very, very powerful. And Aussie ended, and I think Aussie, I have to say, we all said we hung on every word. You're very natural up here, and it was, again, beautifully paced, well argued. One or two flaws in the argument, because you've replaced one culture with a culture of openness, we could argue. So the idea wasn't quite as formed, but the way you spoke was really persuasive. And I thought that example that you gave towards the end of, you know, just putting us on the spot personally. You know, this is the culture where you know, everything is cancelled. No one has any opinion at all. Was really, really powerful indeed. So it was very, very difficult for us. But because of the public speaking element, we all unanimously decided that the winner of the Henry Hunt Trophy this year is Aussie Llama. We're supposed to have a runner-up. It's really, really difficult. And we really racked our brains because everybody was so good. But in the end, partly I think because it was the two that really knew it deeply from themselves, what they were asking. They probably had more time to practice as well. We went for runner-up was Charlie. The joy of this is you will disagree with our decision. I can see some nods in the front row, which is fine. That's what it's all about. Incredibly difficult. What will be really great is that we get even more people. What they did was incredibly brave. To stand up in front of everybody, to have it live streamed, to present their ideas is a really brave thing to do. And when you think about what future employers are going to look for, that ability to stand up, present your ideas, you know, you'd be on my tick list, every single one of you. And it couldn't be a better practice for people. So more of you think about coming up and doing this because it's a brilliant thing that they've all done. So they all deserve a massive round of applause. Congratulations.
Please, a round of applause for Mr. Reader. And before we all depart, please, can we have a huge round of applause for the tech team? Otherwise, tonight would not have happened. So, a round of applause for Mr. Humphreys, Ned, Livy, Freddie, Tom, Mr. Williams, Mr. Jules Smith, Mr. Butler, and Mr. Humphreys. But please, can we have the biggest round of applause, the biggest cheer for the man who made it happen tonight, Mr. Verdon. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Will we see you next year? Good night.